This is a regularly scheduled meeting of Panel A. My name is Jamie Wright, and I'm the chair of Panel A. Will staff please come forward and call roll?
Dr. Bishop? Judge Feinstein?
Here.
Dr. Hawkins?
Here.
Dr. Lewis?
Present.
Mr. Warmoth?
Here.
Dr. Yip?
Here.
Ms. Wright?
Here.
Judge Quorum.
Thank you. I am going to turn it over to our fabulous ALJ judge to take it from here.
Thank you. Good morning. We are on the record in the matter of the statement of issues against Shalina Therese Garza. This matter has been assigned Medical Board Case Number 800-2015-012363 and Office of Administrative Hearings Case Number 2017-070098. Today's date is July 27, 2017. My name is Jill Schlickman. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and today I've been assigned to preside over this hearing. At this time, I will take appearances for the record, starting with the Attorney General's office.
Good morning, Deputy Attorney General Trina Saunders on behalf of the Medical Board.
Good morning.
I'm Shalina Garza.
Good morning. All right, in making your presentation, please keep in mind that the board members have read your written argument and that the argument may be based only on the existing record. Each party will be allowed 15 minutes for opening argument and 5 minutes for closing argument. After the hearing, the board will meet in closed session for deliberations. A decision will not be announced today. You will receive a written decision. All right, so Dr. Garza? Dr. Garza, if you would like to please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that your testimony in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, would you just state your name and then go ahead and give us your argument?
Okay. My name is Shalina Garza. I'd first like to start by saying that I have come here today to ask for a free and clear license because I am not a danger to the public or patients. I'm actually a patient safety champion. Just wanted to make that, I don't know if it's possible to ask for a free and clear license at this time, but I would question the motive of the non-adoption. Why would, okay, so my first argument is that I want to question the motive. Why would non-adoption occur here? Because she's just saying that I cannot continue in a residency program. Why wouldn't I be able to continue residency? I'm wasting time. I'm sorry. So I just wanted to start with something that I noticed. I was reading the watchdog complaint against the medical board, and I noticed that there was a striking similarity between what the consumers were complaining about and my experience with the medical board. And that was that.
Your Honor, I'm going to object that this is outside of the record. It's outside of the scope of these proceedings.
It is. This is my argument.
If you can just, you can
relevance.
give us your thoughts, but not bring up new evidence. So evidence of other cases, or I'm not sure where you were going,
Okay.
would be
Well,
improper. But your
I'm
feelings are fine.
Okay, why I'm mentioning this is because this is exactly what happened in my case. The facts were not obtained. It was a one-sided investigation, and as a result, there are all these factual errors riddled throughout the case, and these factual errors were, it's almost as if it was there was a one-sided investigation, and all of this information was gathered based on the opinion of the original investigator and presented to the expert witness in such a way that the expert witness based his opinions on incorrect information. And I'm going to go through some of these examples, some of these facts that are incorrect. I don't have very much time, so I'm trying to talk really fast and I'm really nervous. I'm really sorry.
Just take a deep breath. You're fine. Would you like me to tell you when you have like 2 minutes left? Would that help you?
Oh, 5 minutes?
5
left?
minutes.
Yeah, that would be great. So the first thing that I really want to explain that's really, really important, and that is regarding this issue of dishonesty and the limitations, so these so-called alleged limitations that were placed on me in Indiana. This, I had just recently figured out, this is a layer upon a layer upon a layer of misunderstanding. And it is clearly evident once I explain to you that this is just nothing but misunderstanding. Not only did I not lie about this, but I was not given the limitation because I was not unable to handle the patient load. And I think that the medical board attorney keeps persisting upon this because if I was dishonest, then not only was I dishonest, but I also wasn't able to handle the workload. Neither one of those things are true. And if you read my first explanation for why I didn't talk about this, I didn't tell the medical board about this so-called limitation, it doesn't even make sense. And the reason why it doesn't make sense, because I didn't read what Dr. Goldberg sent to the medical board. And even after I submitted that explanation, it wasn't until right before the hearing that I actually was able to read the last part of what Dr. Goldman wrote, which was about the rotation switch. And I said, oh my goodness, oh my gosh. He thought that rotation switch was done because I couldn't handle the patient load. That was not I requested that rotation switch because my 12-year-old son, I thought he would be okay at home alone at night, but he wasn't. He was calling me and he was really scared. So I asked, because I had him over the summer, and I asked if I could have rotations over the summer in which I didn't have to be in the hospital at night. I could just switch my schedule around so that my son didn't have to be at home alone at night. So in a large program, Indiana University, huge program, somehow information was just, by the time it got to the program director, I don't know what happened. If he actually believed that, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he didn't intentionally lie about it. You know, he just thought that those rotation switch were for another reason. I thought he was talking about somehow I was given some cap on the patient load that I was receiving, and I was doing this, wondering if that's what he was talking about when I had the meeting with him, and he told me about Dr. Crabb's evaluation, and then when he said, oh, you've had a reduced load, I thought, what is he talking about? He's talking about the day that when Dr. Crabb complained that I didn't complete all of my work by 11 a.m. And, I was a little bit paranoid after that. Thinking, do I have some kind of cap on patients, some kind of secret, compact with administration, and I'm not supposed to be given more pay? And I wrote down all of how many patients I received every day. I kept a journal, and I did this, kind of personal investigation because I was paranoid about it, and it wasn't true. I didn't have any limitations or restrictions placed upon me at all whatsoever. So that was not true. So I'm spending too much time on this, but the bottom line is I didn't lie, and that rotation was not switched because I couldn't complete the workload. It was switched because I requested, and if I have to, I will find that information. I requested through a doctor. He's in Indiana. He's a private practice. He was the one doing the schedule. I requested it through email, but I don't have the email because it's through Indiana University, and I will do whatever I have to do to prove that I did not lie in that circumstance, and I was not placed. That did not happen. I cannot have this medical board action against me for dishonesty. That would the nursing board is going to have a problem with dishonesty as well. So this is going to immediately affect possibly my ability to put food on the table for my children. I was not dishonest about that at all. So how much time do I have?
You still have 8 minutes.
I want to go to the next point that I'd like to make, was that when I came back from Indiana, they gave me 5.5 months of credit. By the way, Another error, factual error. I was not there for 9 months or 8 months. I was there for 6 months. I don't know where this confusion is happening, but I was there for 6 months. Anyway, I received 5.5 months of credit from the medical board. When I went to Oklahoma, and then I went to Oklahoma. At the end of my residency in Oklahoma, when they were filling out the forms, I told her, "You don't have to fill out that part." Can you believe this? I said, "You don't have to fill out that part. I already have the credit for the medicine rotations." And she was a new assistant program director, and she didn't fill it out. The expert witness that wasn't corrected until well after the issue of statements against me, stating that, I have 2 programs, I didn't complete the medicine requirement, and it was given to the expert witness as such, that, Oklahoma claimed that I didn't complete the medicine requirement as well. I don't know why that happened. So the other mistake or incorrect information was that the expert witness falsely believed that I was in a required psychotherapy program. All those records that he received were because I voluntarily provided those records. I have nothing to hide. I have always gone to seek counseling on my own accord. In fact, in Indiana, I had already met with Susan. I didn't meet with Susan Kunkel, but I had already reached out to her via email because I was under so much stress, and I said, this is who I am, and this is what I'm going through, point after point after point. She responded to my email a couple times, and just that response alone, I was able to move on, and I had more strength. I just needed someone to hear me, who I am, and what I'm going through, and acknowledge that, and then I could move on. I'm a very strong person. I came from low socioeconomic status. I grew up in poverty. Neither one of my parents went to college, and I believe that this discrimination is not just based on race. It is also socioeconomic status discrimination, because many of these issues are related to my socioeconomic status. Anyway, that's off. I'm getting off the point for a minute.
And you have about 5 minutes left.
Okay. The other horrible thing that I think happened is that everyone knows what they did to me in pathology is so obvious. Pathology is a very small world. I know that I can get into another pathology program because the work that I have done in pathology is highly academic. I did not, that corrective action plan is a farce, and I don't know what the medical board knows about this because my lawyer decided that it wasn't even worth discussing. I have a binder this big when I came home from Oklahoma, and I wrote the whole story. It's like 26 chapters about what happened in Oklahoma. Why do you think the records are sealed? I mean, it's so obvious what they did to me. It's an incredible story, and I need to tell my story. It was retaliation against my research. My research was ended up in a peer-reviewed journal in the Journal of Women's Health. It was good research, and I was extremely retaliated against for giving a presentation on my research. I even have the recording of the meeting 2 weeks prior to the non-renewal. I secretly recorded the recording with the program director, and everything was fine, all moving forward. He did this to me because I gave that presentation. And Dr. Blakey's horrible statement against me was given to the expert witness, and then the expert witness, this is what I believe happened. He read the statement from Dr. Blakey, and then he interpreted all my evaluations that I must be negative. And all those evaluations are not negative. A first-year resident gets a score of 1, a second-year resident gets a score of 2, a third-year resident 3, fourth-year resident 4, and there are some exceptions, like in professionalism. Everyone should be advanced in professionalism, right? But in general, that is how the evaluation scores are done. So that was an error. My resident in-service exam scores were not submitted. I don't even think the medical board has those scores. At the end of my second year in pathology, my resident in-service exam score was above 80th percentile of all pathology residents in the United States. How could I have not completed 2 years of training if I scored higher than 80% of second year pathology residents? My medical school transcripts, letters of recommendation, my USMLE exam scores. Did the expert witness see any of this? I scored 2 standard deviations above the mean on USMLE step 1. How could I have a difficulty with application of knowledge? That is just insulting my intelligence. I am very intelligent, and I can't believe that I'm here. It's so shocking to me. This is the reason I have PTSD, because this is shocking. I am above average, well above average. I should not be here right now. I was sabotaged. This is extremely traumatizing. So the only way I'm going to be able to heal is if the trauma stops. This right here this is trauma. My life has been severely altered, and I cannot believe that my case is on a low priority. Why is a resident's case a low priority when they can't continue training? It is very important for a resident to continue training. I would have been a board certified pathologist right now if I had been given the opportunity to continue my training 3 years ago when I came back to California, and I have very compelling reasons why I cannot leave California. It's because of my children, and if I had the time to tell you, you would understand that I cannot leave California, and I need to continue my training. So please, I know I'm not a very good speaker. I have not demonstrated any mental impairment. This is appropriate for the situation. This has destroyed my life. I might not ever be able to, I have to work as a nurse. Can you imagine? I mean, my diagnosis is appropriate for this situation, and the depression will go away. I tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. The depression will go away once I have my career back. I will still have some residual issues with fear of being sabotaged that I need to work on, and I will work on that with my therapist. There is a way to train the mind, not to train the mind how to respond when there's a perceived threat. I am very insightful. I don't need any forced psychotherapy. Forced therapy is counterproductive. In my case, the trauma is from all the medical board actions and the sabotage that was done to me. So please don't continue the trauma and force it's just not going to work. It's not going to benefit me at all. I can take care of myself. I'm very insightful. And I haven't demonstrated any mental instability. There's no behavior. What Dr. Blakey wrote, I threw a fit. I did not throw a fit at all whatsoever. It's a lie. It's all a lie. Completely a lie.
So if you could maybe look over your notes and gather your thoughts and give us the closing thoughts.
A lengthy history, she says I have a lengthy history of mental health issues and unhealthy response to stressors. This whole concept that I didn't do well, my performance was based on my mental health issues, is incorrect. That whole general concept. I can handle myself very well, and everyone in residency has stress. I had stress just like every other. I may have more stress because of my other circumstances than other residents, but everyone has stress. This is not true. I was not. I mean, there's just so many. I don't even. Anyway. She says I have engaged in conduct that if done by a licensee would be grounds for discipline. What conduct have I engaged in that would be grounds for discipline? So I would, I'm sorry that I'm not a very good speaker. I wish you could see one of my scientific presentations. I've given some really good scientific presentations, but I don't know how to speak right now.
Well, you know, you'll have another 5 minutes at the end here, and so, and the board members do have your written statement. All right? Okay. So let's turn then to Ms. Saunders. Go ahead.
Good morning. The application for physician's and surgeon's license was appropriately denied by the board. During the hearing appealing the denial of licensure, the applicant did not meet her burden in proving that it wasn't appropriately denied. Meanwhile, the board proved that there are multiple grounds on which to deny the license. This case doesn't present a close call. It's not a case in which the board hung its denial on one bad day at work or one isolated lapse in judgment. The respondent's repeated pattern of conduct over the course of 2 residency programs and years of interaction submitting applications to the board is what demonstrated that the denial of licensure was appropriate. Dr. Service independently reviewed this application and all of the supporting documents, including the files from both residency programs attended by the applicant. And he not only wrote a report, but also testified and supported that report, indicating that the overwhelming weight of the evidence shows that the applicant has not demonstrated the necessary competence, skill, or professionalism required to be licensed in California. The purpose of the administrative proceeding concerning licensure is not punishment, but it's public protection. It's the duty of the board to protect the public from licensing people who are not competent to do the job and who have been dishonest. The goal is the prevention of future harm. And past conduct is the best indicator of what future conduct will be. The applicant has shown us repeatedly that she's not fit for licensure at this time, and therefore the license should be denied. There's several grounds on which the denial was based. Cause exists to deny the application based on the applicant's failure to demonstrate competence in a residency program. After failing to demonstrate proficiency in the 6 core competencies during residency and without successful remediation, she applied for a physician and surgeon's certificate. Clearly, if you're not performing competently in a residency program, how can you be expected to perform independently and competently as a physician and surgeon in this state? The two don't add up. During postgraduate training, she received evaluations at both Indiana University and University of Oklahoma Health Science Center, documenting the failure to consistently perform at a level necessary to ensure the safe performance required of an unrestricted practitioner. The applicant spent 8 months in the Indiana program. The evidence in Exhibit 15 details that she began her residency on June 24th, 2010, and she resigned from that program on February 9th, 2011. That same exhibit contains information that shows that while there, she was unable to complete the program due to concerns about her ability to adequately care for or admit a full patient load. Schedule changes were made to place her on rotations with reduced patient loads. She was required to seek psychological counseling or assessment due to stressors which they believed were impacting her from performing at the level of proficiency of her peers. In addition, she took several leaves of absences, and she didn't receive full credit for the time she spent at the residency program. After failing to competently complete that program, she left and enrolled in a pathology residency at Oklahoma. Evidence related to that program is contained in Exhibit 17. Her performance in Oklahoma's clinical pathology residency program details that she began postgraduate training on July 1, 2012. On November 13 of 2013, she was placed on a corrective action plan for remediation and directed to improve her fund of medical knowledge and its application. It details that respondent was moved from the clinical pathology call, and although this was later reinstated, she was never placed on the call schedule again prior to her resignation from the program in June of 2014. Although she did complete 2 years of postgraduate training, as the decision points out, or the proposed decision points out, her performance was not satisfactory over the period required for licensure, and she failed to successfully complete the corrective action plan that was set in place to assist her in performance. Accordingly, this led to the non-renewal of her contract at Oklahoma. Protection of the public is the highest priority of the board. A doctor with a demonstrated history of inability to consistently treat patients competently and at a level required of residents in a residency program presents a danger to patients and the citizens of this state. One must only ask themselves, if a resident can't competently perform, what logical sense does it make that with less supervision and a license to practice that the individual all of a sudden practice in a proficient manner? Unless and until respondent demonstrates proficiency in a monitored and controlled setting of a residency program where she'll have oversight, the board's not justified in granting her physician and surgeon's license. The board's duty-bound to deny the license. It's the responsibility of the applicant to meet these requirements prior to seeking licensure. With respect to the dishonesty, respondent's dishonesty was proven at the hearing. She clearly attempted to hide her poor performance during residency and the accommodations that were given to assist her performance. She also failed to disclose mental health related issues and treatment received after being asked about it. She attested to the veracity of everything in her application. She signed them under penalty of perjury. Again, past behavior is a predictor of future behavior. The board looks at professionalism and veracity as important characteristics for a licensed physician to possess. In a profession where you hold someone's health and possibly their life in your hands, and in a profession where many consumers rely solely on whatever you say, professionalism and honesty without question are necessary components for a physician. And although at the hearing and here today, respondent represents that she's not aware of the accommodations given, the evidence demonstrates otherwise. The fact that her performance was communicated to her through evaluations and the fact that she had similar problems, including problems related to professionalism at more than one institution, it stands to reason that in comparing the official documentation provided by the institutions versus her word, that these things were in fact communicated. In addition, the evidence proved that there are some issues related to mental impairment. Respondent herself has admitted to being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress syndrome. These issues directly affect patient care, and frankly, it's the respondent's burden to show us that those issues have been properly addressed, and that didn't happen here. And without those issues being addressed as well, she's absolutely not fit to receive a license at this time. Again, there's multiple reasons for denial of licensure. This is not a single instance case, and the overall weight of the evidence shows that the applicant has not met her burden of proving that she is fit to be licensed in this state. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Garza, you have 5 additional minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, I would just like to say that I've provided the doctors with several examples my experiences in Indiana is just a glimpse. I have the truth on my side. I was an exceptional resident. How could you possibly believe that I graduated 6th in my class? I scored so high on the USMLE 1. I was a critical care, an ICU nurse, and I tutored other residents, my pathology exam scores. How could you possibly believe that I just wasn't performing in medicine? It was so perfect for me. It was like all these years that I've been working in the ICU as a nurse, and then I did so well in medical school, and I really was an outstanding, I really did stand out, and the problem was I bucked the hierarchy because I'm a nurse, and that was the biggest struggle for me was, ironically, I'm the patient safety advocate, and you can't always be the patient safety advocate in medicine. Actually, another attending told me that I needed to remember that I wasn't the patient advocate anymore, that I was a medical student. Anyway, but that's a whole nother can of worms right there. But I have been sabotaged, and I did not. I wanted to point out one thing about the leave of absence. I had one leave of absence in Indiana. The leave of absence that I had in medical school, I just want to point this out. So I did 1 year of basic sciences, and then I did 3 months as an in the ICU as an ICU nurse. That was my leave of absence, and that is potentially negative according to the board's attorney. That was not negative. That was an incredible, phenomenal experience, and I think that every doctor should have to rotate with a nurse for a couple of months, and we would all have a better healthcare system. I'm sorry I said it. I know you probably hate me for saying that, but I think the doctors could actually learn something from nurses. That leave of absence wasn't a leave of absence negative at all. That gave me an advantage, a significant advantage. And the other leave of absence, those weren't even really those are every Caribbean graduate had to take that leave of absence. I had to wait for my rotations in Bakersfield. It's not even really a leave of absence that was like something different from anyone else. And then there was one that was like a month, and it was because I couldn't get the rotation that I wanted, and I thought I'm going to take step 2, so I took step 2 exam during that month, and then I was back on schedule with the rotations that I needed. I mean, how could this be used against me? I only had one other leave of absence after that, which was in Indiana. There wasn't multiple in Indiana. It was just one. So, in summary, I just like to continue my training and my career, and I need to be able to. I would like to try to get into another residency program as soon as possible, and I can't do it without permission from the medical board. So I just would like to be able to continue my career, because if I can't do it in California, I'm not going to be able to do it. I have a child who has sensory processing disorder, and I have 2 children, and there are multiple circumstances which tie me to California, which is why I'm here, and because I can't just take my entire family and move somewhere. It's just not possible. I've moved many times in my life, across the country, across the world. I know what it takes, and I know that my family can't do it. It's not even financially possible. So if I guess I need to request a reconsideration, I guess. I don't know how long that's going to take, but I would like to just be able to continue my career, and whatever that takes. If it's probation and I can still continue as a resident, I'll take it. I don't think I deserve it, but I'll move forward with it. And I don't need any government monitoring my mental health, and I'm not gonna. That is just causing me a lot of anxiety. I just do not want any government bureaucracy involved in my mental health.
it's not going to be beneficial at all. And I've demonstrated over and over. I'm only here because the only reason we're talking about this is because I'm seeking my own therapist, because I see my own therapist.
Do you have any final comments?
No.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Saunders?
I just want to briefly point out the things that are most important to remember at this juncture, which are the fact that past behavior is an indicator of future behavior. And we've already pointed out the numerous places where the things that were necessary to receive licensure were not met in the areas of competence, dishonesty, and mental fitness. And while and one other thing that's been spoken about but hasn't been directly just pointed to is that the applicant throughout this process has blamed everyone else for what didn't go right or how she didn't perform appropriately. It didn't really happen. And this is a repeated pattern, and a repeated pattern that if licensed, we can expect to see again in another proceeding where something doesn't go right. It's commendable that she's been practicing nursing. It's commendable that she's seeking therapy. But these things don't obviate the need to meet the minimum requirements for licensure. These things don't obviate the need to demonstrate competence, to demonstrate mental fitness, and to be honest with this board at every juncture. And unless and until the minimum requirements are met and until she's been able to demonstrate improved fitness, competence, and the fact that she's reformed in terms of her veracity with this board, she's not fit for licensure. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, Ms. Wright, did you have any questions?
I do. I'm going to make a comment first, and then I'm going to ask my questions. So, Dr. Garza, so when you come before us, this is your opportunity to plead your case for why you deserve a license, because something happened where it was not adopted. And I sense your trepidation because you're here without a lawyer and there's a lot of emotional stuff going on. But the worst thing you could do is sort of make accusations against the board who's in a position to reinstate your license possibly, and say that there's tons of factual errors and watchdog reports and things that are outside the records. So that's just my general point, and I want that to be reflected because sometimes people come here and they do that, and it clouds the arguments that you make. So I'm going to throw you a lifeline, and I'm going to ask you a very specific question. You want your license back, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So 1, why should we give you the license? And 2, I need you to tell me without accusing anybody else, saying that the record was distorted, you were being retaliated against because maybe you were, why you have demonstrated competency or why the record is incorrect about your competency that would make us want to give you the license, even probationary.
What was the first question?
So why should we give you the license? That's the first question. That's the general overall question. And then the secondary question is, why, without expressing any sabotage, retaliation, or errors, have you demonstrated competency? Or in the alternative, what is it about the record that, in reflecting that you're not competent, tell me why you are competent and why we should give you the license, since our paramount duty is public protection. Why are you not a threat to the public?
Okay. So I think that you should give me a license because it is safe to give me a license, that I'm the least likely person to cause patient harm. I have 20 years of experience at the bedside. Why I have demonstrated competency is how I have demonstrated competency. I did really well in medical school. My exam scores are high, and if you look through so Dr. Goldman in Indiana, okay, so don't point fingers. How do I not point. I believe that I did a really good job in Indiana. I did have a lot of stressors and I was different, but I did a really good job. I
Tell me
protected
why.
patients.
What did you do?
I've tried to give examples of, I can go in my memory trying to give examples of cases where my actions stand out as protecting the patient because I have more experience than others. I've tried to give
Just give
examples.
me one, Dr. Garza. I'm giving
One
you
example?
this lifeline, please, because without, and I'm being as gentle because I don't
Okay.
want to upset you.
Here we go. This is the only that I can think of that's the least complicated. I provided an example where I ordered the CT scan and was able to stop the team from discharging that patient. He had a polyp in his esophagus, and the team was going to discharge. The attending was going to discharge. He'd already been there for 3 or 4 days with this presentation. That's one example of, the way that I practice very, very thoroughly. I'm very conscientious. I have really good physical exam skills. I have really good communication skills with the patients, and I understand the whole healthcare process, the healthcare delivery process. I see all the holes, the gaps where patients fall through. I understand how mistakes happen, and I do everything I can to try to stop those mistakes.
Okay.
All right, yes, Dr. Lewis.
Dr. Garza, I'm going to ask you first a really basic question, and I just want a yes or no. Are you familiar with the Business and Professions Code regarding California granting a license or allowing physicians to apply for licensure in the state? Have you read that?
I believe that I have
Well,
long
it's
time
either
ago.
you read it or you haven't read it.
I don't know if I read the whole thing.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is there are requirements in the Business Professions Code that allow someone to apply for a license, and they're academic requirements. I mean, we can't go, shy of 1 month here and there. There are absolutely strict requirements to get a license, or at least apply for a license in California. And when I read the testimony in text, I see that you, according to Indiana and Oklahoma, you didn't complete the required number of months or required period of time to get a residency. Is that correct, or is that factually incorrect?
That
It's
is
very simple.
that is factually incorrect.
Well, it's confusing here because the statement here says that you have not completed the required minimum of 4 months of general medicine training as part of her postgraduate program. Both the Indiana program and Oklahoma program certify the applicant has not completed the minimum of 4 months in general medicine training as part of their postgraduate training program, etc. Is that statement correct or incorrect?
That is incorrect.
Well, then that I'm confused because that's all part of the record in here, and that's part of the basis of denying you the ability to apply for the license because you haven't met the requirements.
Exactly my point.
Okay, so we'll move on from there because I'm reading this and you have your factual information. Now, are you still under the care of a psychotherapist now?
Yes.
How often do you go to a psychotherapist? I mean, I really
Honestly,
want to
every
know,
couple
are you
weeks.
under the care now?
Yeah, I call him and I'll make an appointment if I want to. And I don't know what other, what would you like me to do? I'm sorry.
Well, I
can't
would
ask
like to
questions.
know, are you under the care of a psychotherapist? That's sort of a yes or no.
Yes.
And how often are you under the care and do you meet with the psychotherapist?
Yes, I meet with him. How often is not really a set schedule at this time. I met him, I think my last appointment with him was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I just, yeah, right now at this point, I think if I were in moving forward, I would be working on, the fear of sabotage, trying to, train my brain not to respond, and I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned many, many times, at least 2 or 3, 4 times, that you're the patient safety advocate. Is that a position, or is that something you just feel that you are?
Is that, what was the first part?
Position. You mentioned,
position?
I'm the patient safety advocate. And we all advocate for our
Right.
patients, but you
Oh, no, not
state this.
not an official position, just as a nurse,
Oh,
in general, that's what nurses do.
okay. Well, I think that might be all that I have to say, but I would read the Business and Professions Code, because I think that I feel you don't understand it completely, and why this was denied. But also was denied, and you were given an opportunity, to hopefully successfully complete a residency training program in California. So it's a probationary license for 3 years. You've just got to get into a residency program.
Yeah.
You read the order, correct?
Right, but it's not adopted. I'm so confused. I thought that's what it was, and I was celebrating, but I realized that it was non-adopted, and I don't know.
I have no further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Judge Feinstein, did you have any questions? No.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Warman?
Just kind of a technical question. You said that you are seeing a psychotherapist. Is it a California licensed board certified psychiatrist or
No,
psychologist?
he's a psychologist. I believe he qualifies as a clinical psychologist, but he has a PhD psychologist therapist.
Is he California licensed?
Yes.
Okay. That's all.
All right. Dr. Yip?
I read your statement twice, at least heard what you said. Let me make a statement and see whether you agree or not. I want to see your state of mind. The board members here are not to protect the board. We're here to protect the public. And so by giving choices, one, we can say we just flatly deny the license because we have all these statements from the other program. We may feel the candidate not fit. The other is to give a chance for the applicant a chance to get a license on provisional status, get a training program so that we can watch the applicant to see whether he or she do well. And that's what we do to find out if we make the right choice by giving a license, not a free and unrestricted license at the beginning. That's our job. Do you agree with that? That's our job?
Yes.
All right. Dr. Hawkins?
Yes, Mr. Garza. Question is, the original order was that you would be given couldn't get a full and unrestricted license, but given a probationary license. It's already been stated, in which you had to get accepted to a 3-year program, complete it in 3 years, and you had to have psychotherapy and that sort of stuff. If that order was executed, if you were given the opportunity to, once you found a residency program, do it in 3 years, commit to seeing a therapist based on what they recommended at the intervals that they recommended, and whatever probationary costs are required, do you want to be a doctor bad enough to be able to do that?
Yes, I would do that.
What would you do? So I want to make sure I understand, because sometimes, and it kind of came out with some of the things in Indiana, there's some organization, communication things, so I want to make sure we're clear about what you're agreeing to do.
I would agree to do a residency program. I have a great fear about government mandated psychotherapy. I'm really fearful of that, and I.
Do you think you'll be able to?
I saw One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Do you-
Put it that way.
do
I
you-
don't want any involvement in my
Do
mental
you
health.
think you'd be able to do it?
would I be able to do a 3-year residency?
You answered yes to 3-year residency, assume you get into residency, and folks to get into residencies on a probationary license, that happens all the time. It would not be exceptional if the only limitation was, it's common for people who have a probationary license to get into a program, so that happens all the time. The question is, would you be able to commit to psychotherapy and meet with the therapist at the interval that they feel it's necessary? And of course, you have to pay those costs. That's a critical part of this as well.
Like, I would, you mean like if it was just through the program requirement?
What I'm saying is,
not the government requirement?
this is not a government, this is a state requirement related to,
I'm just afraid. I mean, I feel like I have to go through with it, but I'm just fearful. And I think that you need to trust your therapist in order for it to be beneficial. And I wouldn't trust I thought that, for example, my discussions with the therapist in Indiana were private, and I'm still feel violated that they're not private.
Dr. Garza, do you trust the therapist you have now?
Yes.
So if you can trust that therapist, and as Mr. Warwick asked the question, if that was a board-certified therapist,
Yeah.
and he met the requirements of the medical board of being your therapist, that person will continue. I just want to make sure that we understand whether you feel that under no circumstances could you see a psychotherapy and do what's recommended by the therapist at certain intervals, etc., that you would do that.
I would absolutely do that. I just hope that it wouldn't be a circumstance where I don't have privacy, I guess.
You'd have privacy. Thank you.
All right, any further questions from the board? Yes, Judge Feinstein?
Sorry, thank you. Good morning. I just want to drill down a little bit so that I'm sure that I understand what you're trying to convey to us about any psychotherapy monitoring. If that were to be a condition of a provisional license, and it, assuming whether it's your therapist meets the criteria to continue to serve, or it is another therapist, is your concern focused on their reporting back what they perceive to be your mental status and abilities to the board? Do you consider that, I think you said, government monitoring of your mental health?
I think probably, yeah.
Okay.
Because I would just like to say that just because I have the diagnosis doesn't mean that I need this, government intrusion to, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But I have great insight. I mean, I have good insight. I will seek therapy on my own. I really don't need it to be required. I mean, I know you probably have some legal reason for it, but as far as it, from a therapeutic standpoint, I think it's a little counterproductive because I'm going to have a fear of, I can, all of us doctors, we can say what, what is needed to be said. I can just, if I'm having a problem, I can just hide it if I wanted to. If I had a fear of that being reported, if I really had a problem, I would need to express that in order to work through it, without a fear of repercussions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and Chair Wright?
So one more question, and the answer is yes or no. If you get the probationary license, will you comply with all the terms and conditions, including the psychotherapy, or will you rebel against what we give you and then you come back here again for some reason. So the answer is yes or no. Will you comply?
I will comply.
All right, any further questions?
More.
Yes.
And it's really only for emphasis. And really just to emphasize what was just stated, if you're granted a probationary license with all the terms and conditions, including definitely psychotherapy, if in fact you refuse to do what you agreed to, then you'd have to come back before the board for a violation of probation, and you'd be in jeopardy of taking all that being taken away from you. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You have to do what you agreed to do and do it in the ways you agreed to do it. And if you didn't, then you'd be in jeopardy of losing it all. You understand that?
Yeah, I understand it. Can I just make one point?
Only if it, yes, you can.
Okay, I haven't, there's not, so maybe I'm wrong, but when I think of somebody who's forced into therapy, I think they must have had some crazy, outrageous behavior. Not just for having the diagnosis. My goodness. I wonder how many doctors actually do have PTSD and are not. You're sending a message to the doctors, don't get therapy, don't ask for help, because you could be government mandated, your license could be on the line, and you're going to end up being forced by the medical board to seek therapy simply for having the diagnosis and for seeking help. I didn't have any crazy, outrageous behavior. I just have the diagnosis.
Well, it doesn't take crazy behavior to benefit from psychotherapy.
Yeah.
And our job is to protect the public. And if you're going to be in a position to take care of patients in California, you have to be taken care of as well. And if there are limitations related to some of your thinking, mental or otherwise, then you probably benefit from it, and therefore the patients would benefit from it. But we have to advocate for the patients just like you believe you have in the past, and that involves protecting them and making sure that practitioners can do focused work to provide the care they deserve.
Mr. Wormuth, did you have a question? No. All right, no more questions on this side anymore?
No, thank you.
All right, then thank you for your testimony and your argument, and we are off the record.
Okay, thank you.
So the board will now be going into closed session to deliberate.